Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, January 13th, and you are listening to episode 191 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for PlanetSide news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. Speaking of that Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com, don't forget, use my Amazon link. You can buy t-shirts, coffee mugs, etc. from my Spreadshirt store. You can make a direct donation to me via PayPal. You can also become a patron over on Patreon, get access to the show before other people. Why am I saying all this? Because now that we're in 2019, I need to start thinking about paying my server costs. That's still a couple months away at this point, but I'd certainly like to start saving up that. And again, the reason I'm able to keep podcasting and my wife doesn't get angry is because thanks to people like you guys using my Amazon link on Patreon, etc., help keep this show cost neutral for me, and that's huge. And that's one of the main reasons that I can continue to do this week after week after week and provide a half hour, 45 minutes worth of content for you guys every week when you get into work on Monday morning or whatnot, or your commute on Mondays. You guys get to listen to my lovely voice. Other than that, I've been playing a lot of PlanetSide 2. I finished Auraximing the Maw last night on my Vanu character, and now I don't really know where to go next on that character. I play engineer almost exclusively on my NC character, and I think it may be time to go and play engineer exclusively on my Vanu character as well. It's just the class that I like the most. It's the class that I think I am the most able to contribute to the team that I'm playing with, or the outfit that I'm playing with, because if you've ever looked at my DA stats, you know that I am a terrible heavy assault player. So maybe I need to go back to that engineer niche, which I'm good at. Other than that, I'm sure you want to know what's in store for this week's show. Well, I'm going to switch things up a bit and start with PlanetSide Arena. Then I'm going to move on to the various hotfixes and information that we got regarding PlanetSide 2 this week. And then I'm going to finish up with some PS4 update status information, as well as a short word from Nick regarding that. All of that, plus the return of Veteran's Voice this week, as well as some listener email. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. All right, as I said, first up this week is PlanetSide Arena, because they were nice enough to release a new video this week regarding vehicles and weapons that we're going to be seeing in PlanetSide Arena. And maybe another reason why I'm going to talk PlanetSide Arena first this week is because I actually got invited to the closed playtests for PlanetSide Arena. Unfortunately, I am 100% under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so I cannot tell you anything about PlanetSide Arena except what we're getting in these videos, but I can tell you that I am playtesting PlanetSide Arena right now. Now, I'm very excited about that, if you couldn't tell. Now, with that out of the way, going back to this video that was put out, and the two main actors, quote unquote, in this were Chris Bishop and Tony Schramm. We all know Chris Bishop from working on PlanetSide 2. did I say Tony? I think I meant to say Troy. And Troy, if you're listening to this, I apologize. I didn't mean to say Tony. Troy working on this. I don't recall seeing Troy before. And hilarious enough, Troy had to have the little remote microphone, the lapel mic was actually clipped into his beard, which I found hilarious. But enough of that. Regarding the weapons first that we're going to be seeing inside PlanetSide Arena, Chris specifically said that we will recognize the majority of them, or basically all of them, from PlanetSide 2 because they're taking existing PlanetSide 2 guns and moving them over into PlanetSide Arena. However, every weapon has had some sort of model, a texture, or effect tweaked or updated for PlanetSide Arena, making them a little bit different than their PlanetSide 2 counterparts. They will, however, use the existing weapon balance that is already in PlanetSide 2. So if you're familiar with using any particular gun in PlanetSide 2, you should be able to use it equally as effectively inside PlanetSide Arena. Not to say any particular guns, but they did show off at one point the TR's Hailstorm and Torque 9. So, I mean, if you're good with those guns, they are available in PlanetSide Arena as well as a lot of other ones. Now, we all know that PlanetSide Arena is an arena-based shooter, and much like Fortnite, PUBG, or the new Blops 4 versions, you do go around the map, you do pick up weapons. You can also pick up nanites along the way, and that allows you to buy weapons and equipment from terminals that are scattered around the map. And like I said, in this video, they showed off you being able to buy things like a Resto Kit, Hailstorm, and the Torque 9 on whichever screen that they were actually showing. They also said that we will be able to get higher tier guns in the game. At one point, they show them going around the map, and one of the guns is blue. I'm assuming that's very similar to the Fortnite style, where some guns are green, some guns are blue, some guns are purple. And moving along those, because they do say that there will be higher tier guns in the game, and they will come with more attachments to them, and they will not have any sort of damage modifier to them as a higher tier gun. They also said that they'll all have underbarrel attachments for the higher tier guns, and one of them that they specifically showed off was the assault rifle. You could switch to the underbarrel and fire rockets out of the bottom of it, and they destroyed a vehicle with it, which was pretty cool. Speaking of vehicles, Troy took over from there and said that the Flash and the Tempest are going to be your two personal vehicles that you're able to have in the game. They also showed off the Harasser, but that's not listed as one of your personal vehicles. They did say, however, that not to worry, because there will be some game modes that are just infantry, some game modes that are just vehicles. Some of the infantry ones could be, infantry capture the flag related, and some vehicles could be vehicle racing ones. Now, moving on to those personal vehicles, they said that the Flash, and this is their word, is grippier, or much more grippier than it is in PlanetSide 2, and they showed it climbing almost a vertical hill, so you should be able to climb hills much better with the Flash in-game. And the Tempest is a fast vehicle, and if you're not aware of what the Tempest is, it is a jet bike. And if you're wondering actually how to get the Tempest, if you get the legendary arena version of PlanetSide Arena, which normal price at launch is going to be $79.99, but right now the pre-order exclusive is $39.99, you can get the M20 Tempest in it, and you'll have a vehicle that you're able to ride, which is a jet bike. And looking at the picture of the Tempest, which I didn't notice before, on the PlanetSideArena.com homepage, it actually has a second person sitting on the back of the Tempest. So I haven't seen that from any of the videos that they've shown, but that might be something interesting if nobody was aware of that. And that was basically everything that Chris and Troy went over in this particular video. They did then cut to Cardo, and he said that his favorite weapon in the game is the submachine guns. And the reason he said so is because their underbarrel attachment is an impulse weapon that can knock back enemies. That wasn't something that I was aware of, so interesting to see if you're getting SMGs. Also, curiously, you could see his monitors behind him, and one of them was talking about or had information regarding a crossbow in PlanetSide Arena, which is something I don't think that we've heard any news about to date. They also had James Kurowski on, which is somebody that I'm not familiar with, but it does say that he's an environmental artist, which obviously means that he's designing the environment for PlanetSide Arena. And he said that his favorite weapon is the drop pod because it allows him to get into shit faster. Truly, James is a man after my own heart. Maybe I should send him a podcast mug after this. So there's that video in a nutshell. If you're not familiar with if you're not in the closed playtest of the game right now, this is probably little snippets of the only little snippets of information that we're getting regarding PlanetSide Arena. But that's the video. I'll include a link to it so you guys can go and watch it yourself and check out some of the stuff that's in it in case you're curious. But with that, let's move on to our second topic this week. So second up this week is the January 8th PC hotfix. Yes, I specifically said PC because there were no hotfixes to the PS4 this time around. And the first thing within this hotfix, they wrote that they've identified and corrected some very specific areas that were causing server performance issues. And the nice thing about this is on Reddit, Paul Giaggio was able to give us a little more information on what some of these issues, specific areas that were causing server performance issues were. So he wrote that they fixed a major issue that had to do with the way the world shares data between zones, specifically warp gate spawn info. So basically, when a zone starts up, it sends a list of its warp gate spawns to the world for it to propagate to other zones, since those are available to spawn into from other zones. Now, he goes on and says the problem there is, one, this gets sent a lot, specifically when each zone is starting up, including dynamic zones like the tutorial zones or coal tier, and also when a continent locks or unlocks. He says, number two, it sent out the full list of spawns from the world to each zone instead of just sending out the updates. So you can imagine the large amount of data that was being sent out there. Then he says, number three, it also didn't ignore updates from zones that started with no warp gate spawns. And he says those that didn't need to send out data at all. And this specifically includes the various tutorial zones. And then he says, number four, when it was sending the update to every zone, it recreated the packet for each zone instead of sending the same packet to each destination. So now you're seeing that it's not only sending the zone every time, sending the packet every time, but instead of sending the same packet or a duplicate packet, it's creating a whole nother packet, which I can only imagine is just adding to the amount of data exponentially. And then he says, for number five, when the zone received it and unpacked it, and then copied the data from the packet to its local data, instead of unpacking the packet directly into its data. So that was adding even more information into the local data itself. Now, he says, ultimately, there's nothing that can be done about number one, because obviously number one has to be done. You know, that information has to be sent. But he says they did fix numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, which dramatically reduced the amount of data that was sent, as well as the time spent processing it. So that's why we were able to see such a marked change in the amount of craziness or insanity regarding server lag and people moving, not your hits not landing, all the server side issues that we were experiencing during the holidays, basically. So again, fixing 2, 3, 4, and 5 basically took care of that. And I can say, playing now after this went live, that I'm nowhere near, or not at all, experiencing the instances where I was firing at somebody and none of my bullets were hitting, no markers, no nothing. And then a few seconds later, that person was dying. And it was very frustrating trying to play that on live. Now, the interesting thing about that, though, is I heard that these same things were not happening to people playing on the Jaeger server, which makes me curious why. I mean, maybe there's just not as much stuff being pushed out on the Jaeger server as there is on live, because obviously there's not as many people playing on the Jaeger server. That can be my only guess as to why. Now, the other thing that I'm realizing is, as I'm reading through what Paul has written here, he specifically said that the tutorial zone was pushing a lot of this stuff out, which makes me wonder if we've seen an influx in new players coming to PlanetSide 2 or not. And while looking at Fizu as an example, the numbers aren't, glaringly huge or really don't jump out or anything like that. But I mean, there is about a 10% net gain in the average number of players across all servers. When you discount Connery, you have to take Connery out of the mix because a lot of people are moving to Soltech, and there's no API data for Soltech available yet, or available for December. So, I mean, there is about a 10% net increase in players. So I wonder if the PlanetSide Arena hype is bringing new players into PlanetSide 2 right now, or players curious about PlanetSide 2 right now. And I'll even say that I've seen quite a few posts on Reddit recently about new players coming to the game as well, and saying, one person even said, "Where's this game been all my life? How did I not know about this game?" So I'm wondering if, in addition to everything that Paul listed, that an influx of new players to the game itself also was something that was messing up, a lot of extra data being pushed out. I don't have a confirmation about this. It's just kind of a gut based on what Paul had to say. Now, also as part of this hotfix, going back to the patch notes themselves, or the hotfix notes themselves, they did write that they'll be running a double XP for all event later in the month, and they're going to return most of the Auraximas items, as well as provide fixes for the ones that were broken, as kind of a we're sorry for what we did. Next on the hotfix is server transfers from Connery and Soltech. They fixed that because, as we know, that was kind of buggy and not working. That is back on. And they've also set a new deadline for server transfers. That is going to end on February 1st. That is actually a Friday. And if we're looking at it, you have about 3 weeks left as of right now to transfer your characters to or from Soltech. So if you haven't done it yet, now is the time to get on and do that. Other than that, there were a couple other little fixes, like the promise is using the correct gold and Auraxium tier kill requirements. That was bugged. The command list in game is now updated with recently added commands. There were some camos that weren't showing correct colors. Those have been fixed. The Galaxy Auraxium trim wasn't working, and that's fixed. And the tint of platoon and squad waypoints is now correct again as well. So that's the entire January 8th PC hotfix. My only thoughts on it are that it came much later than it should have. I mean, the majority of us experienced the horrible gameplay, horrible server-side issues way before January 8th. And I know the devs were on holiday and a lot of them weren't in the office or didn't have any way to get there to fix what was going on, but it still sucked for us players, especially as someone who had to experience it all. But at least the fix is in game. And again, I can say, playing now, if you haven't been playing PlanetSide 2 because the hit reg has been horrible and stuff like that, all that is gone. And the game is now doing hit reg as normal, and now is the time to come back. All right. Before we move on to our third topic this week, I'm going to hand it over to Romus because he's back with another veteran's voice. Take it away.
So here I am, marching around outside again. And you have been wondering, why? Why, Romas, are you wandering around outside? Answer is easy. After Bloggins tried to install lemmings on the official Infonet servers and started crashing them, he decided to install lemmings on my PC. We all know what that means. My computer is currently out of commission. Luckily, I have a new data storage device due in shortly. Until then, we'll have to do an abridged version of a message I had recorded earlier. Mr. Vanderbilt has encountered many a hate tale from people who insist that bolt-action rifles in the face when you round the corner are his fault. Wrong. Shot once, shame on you. Get shot twice, well, that's shame on me. Stop rounding the corner. It's not his fault you have all the common sense that God gave a donut. Jeepers. Playstyles are all very important, and bolt-action rifles are an important part of that. They allow you to modify the battlefield and punch up from your numbers. One sniper can affect the behavior of dozens of soldiers. If you don't like it, tough toenails. Get over it. Remember, the only difference between a scrub lord and a Superman is learning from your mistakes. Now, back to you, Derringer, and thanks for stepping up and doing the editing on this one. Also, my sincere apologies to the player base for Bloggins' behavior in making the servers a hot mess. Good news is, however, if you want to exact your punishment, I can guarantee you he certainly isn't reassigned temporarily to the VR training area. Definitely not an infiltrator standing around stuck frozen. Let him have it. Where the hell's that bloody galaxy? I need a lift. Blasted Bloggins.
Thank you, Romus, and welcome back, buddy. Stay warm up there. I know you guys don't even know where Romus is, but let's just say it's got to be damn cold up there. And I have to agree with him 100%. You know, I hate snipers just like everybody else, but snipers have their place within PlanetSide 2. It's just something. But I mean, you can certainly have ways to deal with snipers. You know, pull an infiltrator yourself, go cloak out, go hunt them down, and shoot them in the back of the head with your Derringer pistol. Oh, maybe I've done that a few times. I hate more than snipers, though. I hate C4 fairies more than anything else. You know, the guys that just jump jet into you, throw C4, and then, you know, fly into a room, throw C4, and try to kill as many people as possible. That's the one that annoys me more than anything else. But moving along, let's talk about the January 10th PC hotfix. And this is a small one. They did some more server maintenance during that downtime. But the bigger part of it was that they were going to be reactivating the Auraximas directive. That is now available through January 18th. So if you're listening to this week's show, you have until this Friday to finish your Auraxium directive. Now, unfortunately, they have broken the Auraximas directive, and it has reset everybody's state of their Auraximas directive at this point. So if you were halfway done or 3/4 of the way done, it's been reset to 0, which sucks. I mean, on my Vano character, I did it, and I got my Santa's Little Helper, so that's fine. I was to the through the third tier on my NC character, and I just don't feel like spending the week trying to finish it up. So that sucks. But regarding the Auraximas directive, there was a producer's note from Nick, and Nick wrote, "Hi there, Planet Mans. During our maintenance this afternoon, we reactivated the Auraximas 3 directive to run through January 18th. We have never reactivated a holiday directive in such a way in the past, and in doing so, all previous progress towards the directive has been lost. We looked into the possibility of restoring this progress from backups, but that process could potentially take days and cause other types of progress to be lost. Given these drawbacks, we have decided not to attempt to restore progress on the directive and apologize to those who thought they would have a lot more time to complete the holiday directive this year. We apologize for the missteps in communication and the progress that has disappeared with the reactivation of the Auraximas event. We may bring the Little Helper shotgun back in another way so that players will have another opportunity to unlock it in the future. In the meantime, we'd also like to mention that the PS2 team's priorities have shifted completely to client and server performance. We are aiming to deploy some amazing improvements in the coming months. Thanks a lot, and we'll be seeing you on the battlefield. Nick Silva, producer, PlanetSide 2. So at least we have a reason why they didn't do anything regarding it. It still sucks. Again, my NC character was affected by it. Am I really that heartbroken about it? No, but I mean, if I was someone who was one thing away from finishing it, that would probably infuriate me, or at least piss me off to some extent. But I mean, I did finish it on one character, and I mean, we did have a long time, even up to that point, to finish it. I mean, I finished it well before we had any performance issues or server-side issues. So if you didn't get to it in that time on your first character, shame on you. I think that if the devs wanted to be cool about this, that they would unlock the Santa's Little Helper along with everyone's Auraximas 3 directive on all their characters if they completed it on one of their characters. That might have been the route that I had gone on it, just as a little, make good for it, because if you didn't do it on one character within the long time frame before this reset, that's more your fault than their fault. I mean, granted, the reset is their fault, but we had plenty of time to get directive done on one of the characters. So again, if I was the devs, that's personally what I would have done to make it right. But we'll see how they decide to bring back the Little Helper shotgun at some other point. And they also got to remember there were other things in there, like don't forget the banner and stuff like that, and the Grouchy title too. That's gone too if you didn't get that. But if we want to look at it on the bright side, there is a way for you to get some free implants, because don't forget the first tier, you got some implants out of it. So that's the bright side of it, I guess. So that's your January 10th PC hotfix in a nutshell. The biggest thing that I got out of this, besides the mess up there and, Nick's note, is that they've shifted completely to client and server performance right now. And I wonder if that means they're getting closer to deploying DirectX 11 on the test server and then that to live server as well. Again, this is just blind speculation on my part, and I don't know anything. But with that, let's move on to our fourth and final topic this week. So last up this week was a question asked by Reddit user Dumbtail. Dumb name. He said, when will PS4 problems be looked at? Pretty short and sweet there. But Nick did have a response to this that was worth talking about. And he says, there is a much longer pull task going on right now to get PS4 updated to the newest PS4 SDK and Forge Lite engine. I don't have an ETA yet. This is a major PS2, PS4 update, and we plan on making a lot of noise about it when it hits. Now, if you're like me, your first question is, what is an SDK? And apparently that's a software development kit, which leads me to believe that there must be some big change to the PS4 that the folks at Daybreak Games are working on regarding PlanetSide 2, and also the Forge Lite engine itself. Maybe they're melding the two of those things together. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not a programmer, but clearly, at least from this, we're getting that something big is going on behind the scenes about PlanetSide 2 on the PS4 right now. How many people are working on it, I don't know. But at least Nick says that they are working on something. So I know this is not what PS4 players want to hear coming out of my mouth right now, but we need to wait a bit longer until we get some updates for the PS4 version of PlanetSide 2. And yeah, I know that's shitty and it's not what you want to hear, but that's basically what Nick's saying at this point. Now, he does say they plan on making a lot of noise about it when it hits. Does that mean, again, must be the blind speculation show. Does this mean construction might be able to make its way to the PS4? I don't know. But if it's a big update and they're going to make a lot of noise about it, I'm racking my brain trying to think what else might, what's missing from the PS4 side of the game, from the PC side of the game. And really the biggest thing is construction. Maybe that's the question that we need to be asking the developers at this point. But again, I'm sorry that I've got to say it again, PS4 folks, but we've got to wait a little bit longer before we get an update. With that, though, let's move on to housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
So I did get 2 emails this week. The first is from Hybrid, who writes, "Hey Derringer, happy 2019, and here's to another 52 episodes of IAP." 52 episodes a year. That's what I do. He also wrote, "You covered the Sirius Lex videos pretty well, but I just wanted to comment about the ADR stat. I believe it would be very difficult to track, considering that guys like Lex and other high-skilled players, as well as mid-tier outfits and up, will rarely wait around for the capture timer to finish, whether they are defending or attacking. Anyone playing in that style while solo will be looking for more enemies to shoot, and squads/platoons will be looking to catch enemy forces off guard and knock the timer down before they can react. I hope that some new meta or techniques come from the air smash, because most of the time on live servers right now, it just ends up as a snowball with the winning faction hovering all alone near the anomalies once they get even a slight lead. Love the show, Hybrid." So first, Hybrid, thanks for the email as always, and Happy New Year to you also. And I agree with you 100% on the ADR stat as well. I mean, I play in those types of outfits where we leave well before the cap timer is even close to being done. It's like, you're done with it. Okay, the fight's over. You kill the Sundra or whatever. You kill the Sundra, kill the fight. Whatever happens, it's done. Most people are not hanging around to get that timer off. I mean, if I'm under 20 seconds or something like that, I might wait to redeploy until we hit under 10 just to get the credit for it. But otherwise, I don't do that either. In regards to your air smash questions, I thought it would be best if I reached right out to, somebody who's running the air smash itself. So I reached out to Znipsel regarding your comments, and he did say that they're concerned about that snowball effect as well. But the good news is, since they're on a test server, or since they're on Jaeger, not test server, I'm sorry, that they have the ability, to make the teams even. And also, there's going to be limited amounts of galaxies per team, because he says basically galaxies are the main reason that anomalies become stale at this point. And he says you just can't kill them without focusing fire on them. And I didn't really think of that. And granted, I'm one of those people who every time an air anomaly pops up, I pull a galaxy and I go and hover in the middle of the anomaly, just to make myself get all those points and be productive regarding it. But yeah, I wondered as well, reading your email, if that would happen also with the air anomaly smash. But the good news is, like Znipsel said, they're on top of that. They know that that's something that could happen with it, and they're doing their best to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I guess the next question is, like you said, is that going to bring techniques to the live server to stop that? And clearly dealing with galaxies is the number one problem. So again, thanks for the email. Moving on, I also got an email from Zastrom, and he wrote, "Good day, sir. I did a small survey, and 83% of PS2 players want to see Friday Night Ops with Drew and Rel." And he says, "I look forward to the first live stream, though I will probably wait for a long time." Then he says, "Now to be more serious, the response of Christmas/New Year's server problems was poor. If I had acted in the same way DBG did, I would have to seek a new job. Yes, it was Christmas and New Year, but the customers were a quote-unquote little annoyed. It is good that they've identified what the problem was and fixed it, but the response was poor. I don't know what was the fault, but with my experience from a IT, restart can solve the problem, even if it's only temporary. It is better than not doing anything." Also, Nick Silva said in his producer's note that in the meantime, we'd also like to mention that the PS2 team's priorities have shifted completely to client and server performance. I'd rather see that they work on 1, keeping an eye on the server, 2, nanite deep operatives, and 3, DirectX 11. Oh, well, it was not as bad as the Christmas Grinch update of 2014, his words. It was so disastrous that John Smedley went in and stopped the development and told them to fix the problems before they proceeded with the development. I remember that 2014 debacle quite well. So Zastrom is 100% right. In regards to that Friday Night Ops thing, I would love to see Drew and Rel do a split screen Friday Night Ops type deal where they're both playing on the live servers. I am part of that 83% who would love to see something like that. I would love to see the devs stream more than they currently do. I know Drew's been doing it a bit more, not as much as I'd like him to. And I haven't seen Rel stream in a little while, but I'd love to see a split screen of the two of them in the same squad playing together. I think that would really be cool and stuff like that. Again, thank you for that email. But that's going to be it for this week's show. So how can you get in touch with me or the show itself? As always, your first stop should be my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. You can email me like Hybrid and Zastrom did at instantactionshow@gmail.com. You can call me and leave me a voicemail at 347-4VM-4PS2. Those numbers are 347-486-4772. Also, follow the show on Twitter at InstActPodcast or me directly on Twitter. My personal Twitter is at The Derringer. But in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. 2019, with the launching of PlanetSide Arena, that's going to be one of my New Year's resolutions, to get more of you guys to give me reviews on all of those podcasting locations, because that's how new players to PlanetSide Arena and stuff like that are going to hear about me. So if you've been delaying making that review, go out and do it now, please. It's the only thing I'm asking for. Other than that, also feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. But finally, thank you for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.